Hello and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video. Myself, Marta, as always, I'm here with the latest news from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. We've got a fair few AMD things for you today. We do have a bit of console news as well, but we're going to start off today's proceedings with a very interesting report regarding Renoir Zen 2 APUs. So of course it's been speculated for some time now that we would be seeing Zen 2 based Renoir APUs sometimes in November. Now that's unlikely to happen this month, so we might have to wait some time before we actually see these APUs. However, we have seen a leak which could be indicating that we'll see a Vega 12 and possibly even higher Vega variant than that iGPU could actually be en route to us. Now this all is thanks to Komachi on Twitter, whose name you should be very familiar with at this point. They have been responsible for a lot of actually pretty reliable leaks, and basically they found a listing which mentions several Renoir listings with B12, which is a 12 compute unit iGPU. So it most likely is Vega 12, but there's also other reports going around basically saying that it could be Vega 13 or even Vega 15 configuration. Now unfortunately all we can see from Komachi's tweet is just various listings and names, of course with the wattage next to each one, but still, it's not going to be that long before we find out if these processors actually do exist. I would very much expect it to be, if not this month like the rumours initially said, it's more likely, to be honest, going to be at CES next year. So, fingers crossed we'll see the mobile side of things get fattened out a little bit for AMD. But we have another AMD topic up next, as we have a benchmark which has surfaced for the 3950X. So what we have is a Geekbench listing which has been spotted, and you can see an Alienware Aurora Ryzen edition versus a Gigabyte based system with an X299 motherboard, and of course Skylake X. So what we have here in this benchmark is a Ryzen 9 3950X versus a 980 XE. So just as a refresher of the specifications here, we've got 3.59 GHz for the 3950X at 16 cores and 32 threads. And for the 10980XE, it's 3 GHz with 18 cores and 36 threads. But the more important takeaway from this is that as you go down the stack of results, you can see that things are heavily in favour for a decent chunk of these results, at least on the multi-core, on the Ryzen 3950X. Now it is a bit more even, or on the other side, on the single core performance, but you do see some results where the 3950X is actually beating the Intel offering, and other times where it's not actually that close for lead one way or the other. So very, very interesting stuff and very impressive results there from the 3950X. And speaking of all things Threadripper, we have more to talk about here. Now, of course, one of the things that we learned about the new Threadripper platform was the existence of something by the name of TRX40, which is a brand new socket which will allow for the use of up to 64 cores on a consumer level motherboard. Now, obviously this is good news, but some questioned if this meant that AMD was kind of going to some Intel-like habits with their uses of sockets. Obviously, Intel have gotten better now, but for a while it was, new sockets almost every other generation, and obviously upgrading became very, very expensive, and obviously AMD were committed to keeping AM4 as long as possible, and obviously they switched to a new platform for Threadripper, which is fair enough, but for this particular socket, the TRX4, just raised concerns that AMD were kind of doing that sort of approach, and AMD have gone onto the official subreddit to give an actual official response that this is not the case. The TRX4 socket is not going to be replaced anytime soon, basically. So, well, yes, this socket exists. It is going to be sticking around for some time, so you don't have to worry about any sort of nonsense from that regards to sockets. And they said, quote, third gen AMD Ryzen Threadripper processors will be using a new socket called STRX4, while the pin count will be the same as previous gen Threadripper products, such as the 4094. The mapping of those pins to voltage or data will be different this time around. You cannot install a third gen Threadripper into an older motherboard, nor an older Threadripper into a new STRX4 motherboard. There are two essential reasons for this. We wanted to drive maximum performance for the 3rd gen AMD Ryzen Threadripper processors, and STRX4 helps us do exactly that. The 3rd gen Threadripper will have 88 total PCIe Gen 4 lanes with 72 usable CPU plus motherboard. The net total versus usable is because we're also increasing the CPU chipset link from 4x Gen 4 to 8x Gen 4, quadruple the bandwidth versus the 2nd gen Threadripper. Extra data pins between the chipset and CPU make this possible, so be able to hang more I/O off the motherboard at full performance. The socket change also sets up nicely for future development and scalability of the Threadripper platform, both on a near and long-term basis. So that's their comment in full, and you can see the thread where all of this basically happened linked in the description below this video. So basically, not only have they gone on to explain why this socket even exists, why they felt the need to actually have it for this particular platform, they basically promise that this platform is sticking around for some time. You don't have to worry about multiple upgrades every other generation or anything like that, and they're still kind of sticking with an AM4 like strategy when it comes to a lot of sort of forwards and backwards compatibility going on. Obviously I can definitely see the reason why this chipset exists, so that's fine, but I was getting a little bit concerned because obviously the new boards, the TRX40 normal boards, are not exactly cheap, so it's a valid concern to have that AMD might be pulling some shenanigans. And speaking of TRX40 and their price tags, well, we actually have some prices having been leaked for some Gigabyte TRX40 motherboards. So what we have is another well-known leaker, Mobo, on Twitter. Has basically found that the recently announced TRX40 boards have been listed at the Bottom Line Telecommunications, or BLT, e-store. So we can see a few listings here, each with a price tag attached, which is, let's just put it this way, it's not going to be kind to the old wallet. So we've got the TRX40 Aorus Extreme, which is the high end out of these particular ones, and it is going to be, brace yourself, $869.62. The next one, while more reasonable, is still very expensive. This is a lower end one. This is the TRX40 Aorus Master, and is going to be $509.29. And the next one is the TRX40 Designaire, and this is $646.83. And the lowest end one is the TRX40 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi, which, even though again is the lowest one out of this particular stack anyway, is going to be $407.81. So yeah, not exactly cheap. That top end motherboard is almost $900, so it's not even that shy of $1,000, which is pretty crazy. Now obviously this is a higher end platform, this is Threadripper, it's not consumer level in the way that obviously the Ryzen 3000 processors are. That obviously makes sense. The original Threadripper and Threadripper 2nd generation weren't exactly something you can get hold of for your spare change, but this is still a bit of a leap, and definitely eye-watering on the top end for sure. But let's finish up today's proceedings with some comments from Sony's Jim Ryan, regarding the PlayStation 5. So basically he had an interview with gamesindustry.biz, and you can find a link to their interview in the description below this video, and he's discussed some of their plans for the PS5, and obviously he didn't go into nitty-gritty details, but he did mention some things which sound definitely interesting. And he said, quote, "One of our tasks, probably our main task, is to take that community and transition it from PS4 to PS5 and at a scale and pace that we've never delivered on before." And he's also personally focused on games that will, quote, "make or break PlayStation 5 just as they do every platform." So he's probably referencing the launch games and obviously the post-launch library, which is very, very important as well. I mean, launch games are always a little bit suspect at every console generation. Even the PS4 and Xbox One were not immune to this. We might have that broken this time around because both the companies have been hard at work at getting some really nice games. Not all of them are going to be available for launch, of course, but I think they both know how critical the launch is for this generation. They need to get it right because obviously Sony wants to keep the top spot and Microsoft wants to give Sony a bit of a run for their money this generation, but it just shows that he's really keeping a close eye on the games, because I'm sure he knows that you can talk about specs till you're blue in the face. What really matters is what games you can play on it, and obviously the upcoming lineup for Sony is no slouch. We're looking at games like God of War 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn 2, and undoubtedly we're going to see ports of games like The Last of Us 2, and things like Ghost of Tsushima, and obviously Death Stranding most likely as well. Those sort of games that are coming out on sort of the tail end of the PS4. We kind of saw the same thing with the PS3 to the PS4. We eventually saw The Last of Us come to that particular platform, and obviously it was much better on the PS4. So definitely reassuring to know, but he just discussed a lot of stuff with gamesindustry.biz, and I've only just touched on a very, very small portion of this interview, so go and check out the full thing, which again is linked in the description below this video. But thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, your support is highly appreciated. Do remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It does help out a great deal, and I'll see you next time.